Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, everybody. Of course, it's LaFlower, and I have a very, very special guest with me tonight. One of our amazing co authors for The Wife Union. I'm just checking all of our um, destinations to make sure that everyone can see and hear. If you guys are tuning in, just leave a comment below to let us know that you can see and hear us okay. But of course, we're super excited because the Wife Union Chronicles book is about to come out next month. Woohoo! So you'll be seeing me continue to do this series with a lot of our co-authors. I think the next one that will be airing. Oh, here, Alexa over there, hustling, ear hustling. Alexa just came. We have next we'll have co-author Lisa that will air later this week. But tonight we have the phenomenal, the fantabulous Tiffany Rochelle. You guys, she is such a dear friend to me, but she is a leader's leader. She is a coach's coach. She is an author of the amazing book, Dear Leader, that is so amazing. She does masterminds, master classes. Uh, she has a foundation. And, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. But most of all, she really she's a wife, and she understands the intimacy that it takes with God in order to walk out that lifestyle, right? So, without further ado, Tiffany, how you doing, girl?
Hey, I was looking around like, who's she talking about? Who's she talking?
Whatever.
Fantastic. As always, it's such a pleasure to come and hang out with you. So I'm excited to chat with you this evening.
Awesome. Yes. Well, so I brought this project to Tiffany. I invited her to it over a year ago. And I'm just so grateful that she, thought enough or, said yes to share a little bit of her voice and her story in the book. So you guys know that it's an anthology. It's a group of women, and so this is the first volume. And in this volume, we're talking about the misconceptions and the truths of being married and being a wife. And so, Tiffany, if you think back to when I first brought this project to you, what was one of the things that made you say yes to sharing some of your story and your walk with, as a wife?
Well, first of all, Flower, I love you. So you already know there's very little that you asked me to do that I'm gonna say no to. So you said, can I? And before you finished, I said yes. So that's first of all, because I value and trust you in your work that much. But secondly, is because I do know that the power of testimony and the power of experience is fundamental at this time. And I've been married 3 times, so I got experience, right? And there's a lot of people, especially people who are coaches or leaders or gurus, who are hesitant to share the truth about the walk they've walked.
Mm.
And you know me, I'm all truth all the time. So I just thought it was a great opportunity to share a very vulnerable and very transparent and authentic story about a chapter in my life and how a previous chapter affected my current chapter until I came into alignment. And so I just thought it was something that people need to hear if they're really serious about being a wife.
Oh my gosh, that was good. That was really good. No, because you're right, and I think that's one of the things that really got me on this journey of sharing and helping other women, because we hear so many people, so many women say, oh, I'm ready to be a wife, I'm waiting on my Boaz, I'm ready, I'm looking, I'm searching where he gonna find me. But there's a lot that comes with being a wife,
Mm.
more than just um
I,
the just exactly. There's a lot, and you guys know Marcus and I, our next season of the podcast is coming out, Beyond the Vows, and we started that to talk about what happens beyond the I do, right? Because there's so much, and I just want us women to walk as wives before they I do, before we anyone even ask our hand in marriage. I'm a firm believer that we should already bear the fruit of a wife. We should already have those characteristics of a wife. And so thank you so much for sharing that, because there's a lot of Instagramness that has, a lot of women thinking that, oh my, that this is what wifeship or wifehood looks like, and it's really not like that.
Not at all. Not
Right?
at all.
I mean, and you guys share this, because I'm pretty sure that there's somebody who this is going to benefit, this wife talk session with Tiffany, because as Tiffany stated, she has been a wife more than once. And I know that in my first marriage, there was a lot of things that I wouldn't say I wasn't prepared for, but at the same time, I wasn't prepared for. It's like I knew I was ready for the relationship, but I wasn't ready to really walk out all the characteristics of being a wife, all the essentials that are understanding my, men from a wife standpoint. How did you feel about that in your first marriage? Were you fully prepared to be a wife in all aspects?
In in all honesty, I think I was pretty well prepared. Um,
Okay.
you know, I it's not a boast, but I had the pleasure of being in a two-parent household where
Mm-hmm.
my parents were believers, so they really lived by biblical principles, and my
Mm-hmm.
father and my mother really worked hard to teach me and my brothers about not just being in a building and serving in name. Like, it was, they talked to us about husbandry, they talked to us about being a wife. My father talked to me about being a wife, and the one thing that, he taught me to honor a husband and all those
Mm-hmm.
things. So when I
Right.
entered into my marriage, I was prepared to submit.
Mm-hmm.
I was prepared to do certain things. I was clear, like, I don't want to do that, so I'm not gonna cook every day, because that ain't me. I never came in with a lie. Like, I'll give you 4 days. We're gonna negotiate. Like, I'm 4 days. But what I wasn't prepared for was people not meaning what they said, and what they said not meaning what I had learned and what I knew.
Break that down for us a little more.
So I came from a big family. I came from a family where your word is your bond. I came from a place where my family's full of married people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Lots of husbands and wives in my family. So I came from a place where somebody tell you they love you, they love you. And their love is backed up by action. They're gonna do what they say. They're gonna follow through. They're gonna carry you.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's the environment I was raised in. So I entered into my marriage with the expectation that when you say it, you're gonna back it up.
Mm.
And you're not gonna just keep saying it and your backup don't match your words. So that's the part that I wasn't prepared for, because I'm like, this math ain't mathing. Like, this doesn't
Mm-mm. The
match.
words are not adding up. Like what
Right.
love is, and it's not love.
Exactly. And I had good girl syndrome, right? I was a good girl.
Mm.
I came from, I don't want to have my kids out of wedlock, even though I was pregnant before I got married, right? But it was to
Mm-hmm.
this man who was my first, my only
Mm-hmm.
time, right? And I didn't want to, I wasn't wild. I wasn't gonna be out here. Like,
Yeah.
this is my
Yeah.
man. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be with you. We're gonna fight together, and that's what it's gonna be. I was also expecting his fight or his war to match mine.
Mm.
But I didn't understand at that time, everybody has their own war, everybody has their own dictionary, everybody
Yeah.
has their own experiences. So what we were saying sounded the same, but what we were doing and expecting was really different.
That's good. That's good. Even Marcus and I, we've had to get clarity. We've had to have several seek to understand conversations when it came to, okay, we're in the same chapter. We just not on the same page, right? It's not, if I'm saying we're saying the same thing, but our actions, our intentions, our expectations are, they're not the same. And it's crazy, like you said, coming from that two-parent household, understand, seeing, having those examples taught us how to be wise. But for me, I didn't want it. It's like I subconsciously rejected all of that. I was like, I don't want that. Like, you telling me I got to do this, I got to do that. Like, I saw my mom, submitting to my dad, and I'm like, I just want to be somebody's rich auntie. Like, for real, I don't
I
want no
missed that
kids.
memo. I missed that memo, girl. I missed that one.
I didn't want none of it. I wanted no parts of it because I saw the examples. Because I saw, but I didn't understand how kingdom, how intentionally kingdom minded my parents were, right? I was just like, I don't want that. But now understanding God's will and how kingdom is structured, I was like, man, y'all did a pretty darn good job. I just rejected, and here I am later, married multiple times with an XL family. I was like, God, you're super funny. You're super funny. But let's get into your chapter in the book, called Losing Control. Oh my gosh. I like this. I like this. At the beginning, you said, early in my marriage, I was at a gathering discussing relationships when someone said, I didn't know you were married. I would not have guessed that.
Mm-hmm.
So, we all have our expectations and how we think a wife should look, a wife should sound. Some wives reference their husband in almost every conversation, like newlyweds and things like that. Like we've been, discussing sometimes. And, for some, you have your own identity so much. You don't have to over validate yourself with your marriage. But tell me a little bit about that. If you go back to that conversation when she said, I didn't know you were married. I would have never guessed that.
But it's funny, because you're right. I do have such a clear personal identity that I don't over identify as a wife. I don't over identify as Mrs. and my husband, my husband. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose. I
Mm-hmm.
just have my own identity, right? But at this particular time, the person said that I didn't give off the energy of somebody who was married.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that.
And so I had to ask, we had short times in the chapters, but I had to ask her like what she meant. And she was just like, you just don't give off the energy of a woman who has a mate, like that, like there's somebody with you. And I had to really, really think about it. Because at the time I was very, very happily married to my current husband. And I was like, what does that mean? And then it just kind of took me back to conversations with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've never had a head butting of, because I was single for a long time before I got with him.
Mm-hmm.
But we've never had I'm a single independent woman. That's not my energy. So I really had to explore it. Like, what do you mean? And I realized, for the first year of us being together, my husband spent telling me, hey, you're not alone.
Oh,
You're not
okay.
alone. And it wasn't because I was bulldozing or running over him. It was just I had become so self-sufficient,
Mm.
doing and making decisions for myself, that my mind was saying, oh, you don't need to bother him with that. Oh, you don't need to go, like, you got it, you can handle it.
Right, right.
So just in that space of coming out and being like, okay, I got this, I guess, and I will say at that moment that she was of the lighter hue nation, as one of my friends would say. So I also think, and they're very into the demure, let me just take care of me, John, kind of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have the luxury. right? Even though I was in relationships previously where I didn't have to work if I didn't want to, and they were providers, but it was still not that relaxation of you got it, John. You got
Gotcha.
it, John.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I'm happy that you didn't say that you took. I know that you do a great job of allowing someone's words to be their words and not adding additional intentions to those words, because if I can very well see that situation going left, with someone may say, oh, you don't give off that type of energy, and just things like that. And so I just wanted to point that out, like, we really do have to be so secure in our own identity that you know we don't add additional expectations or intentions onto what someone is saying, right? You also mentioned in your chapter, let me find it, I like how you transition. um mm, I think I just lost my place. But you talked about doing a reevaluation before said when you were ready for a new relationship. You talked about doing a reevaluation before going, full force into that. Tell us about how you knew you were ready for a new relationship, because we know that sometimes we all hear about the baggage and the residue of the old and going into. But tell us about how you knew you were ready, as well as what did that reevaluation look like?
Um, the funny thing is, I've always recognized cycles and patterns in my life.
Mm,
And at the time I was recognizing it, I didn't know what I was doing, but I recognized it. So my pattern would be, if I broke up with somebody, like, I was never a person who needed to be in a relationship.
okay.
First. So I'm good by myself. I'm good company. I'm okay alone. And that's that part of building that self identity that didn't require a man for me to be identified as a woman, be identified as valuable. None of that, right? But I also understood that I needed time to process what I had been through. I needed time to heal from what I had been through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed time to learn who I was after what I've been through. So I never made the assumption that I was the same person going, before going into a new relationship. I had to do a check, like, okay, what do I like now? Like, what is important to me now? What do I want to be now? And going from one relationship to another was never an option for me, because it was like, oh no, I need to process, I need to cuss and cry, then I need to heal, and I need to go, hang out, meet people, and decide what I like. Is this what I like? Is this what I want? What's making me tick at this time? So I
Right.
just did a lot of who are you, Tiffany, in between relationships. And then never before, like, guys would always pursue me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a problem with men pursuing me.
Mm-hmm.
I often tell them, I'm not ready for a relationship. You will not want me for a woman, because I'm not going to give you what you need. I'm not going to give you what requires to be in a relationship. So I'm not going to do it. And I was willing to be firm in
Oh,
that. I was willing to say, you cute and all, and what you're offering sounds nice, but I'm not going to give you
not ready for.
because Tiffany don't want to do that right now, and that's not fair to you. So let her take herself to the movies and sit over here in the corner and read her books and sip her Chardonnay. And when she's ready, like, my spirit, my body, I always knew, it was like, oh, okay, I'm ready for a relationship now.
Mm-hmm.
Never looked for one. I would always just mentally say I'm ready,
I
and
got
then
it.
show up.
I mean, that time in between relationships is so vital. And I think when we add on intimacy, right, into the equation, that time needs to be extended,
Mhm.
because it's so much that you have to reevaluate within yourself. But then you have to deal with the spiritual aspect of the intimacy part, strong, all of that comes with you breaking away from that old relationship and going into that new one. And I also like how you said that we're never the same person that we were coming out of a relationship. That person, we had different experiences. We've learned things, we've tried new things, and it's important for us to be honest with ourselves. We might even change our whole thing. Like you said, what makes me tick is like, who am I attracted to now? Is he tall? Is he dark? Is he slim? Is he a little thick? What do I like now?
To interrupt you right there, it
No,
was
you're
funny
good.
because, of course, when I was younger, I liked older men. My first husband was 12 years older than me,
Mm.
right? My second husband was 4 years older than me. I got to a stage somewhere in between there and my current husband, who's 5 years younger than me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Old men are just old. So no, I don't want them no more. Like, I don't want no older man no more. So then we it switched up. And my cycle
Yeah.
was 3 years. I was always single for 3 years. And
Wow.
that's like, it's just like, that's my process time. And then about the end of 3 years, it's like, okay, you about ready again. But
Mhm.
I just was laughing about that idea of, yeah, I don't want an old man no more.
Oh my gosh. Like, no, now that I'm older, it's like I definitely don't want, someone older, because like you said, you just really old now. But whatever floats your boat. Whatever floats,
Mhm.
whatever floats your boat. Okay, so tell me, when it came to you being ready for this new relationship, I know you said your cycle. So talk about cycles a little bit more, because I think if we really pause and understand the cycles that we go through, because we go through a lot of different cycles in relationships within ourselves. So tell me about, will help someone understand or be able to recognize a cycle. Because for me, I look at it at, a macro and a micro view. But how do you do that?
Um, the first step is be willing to self-evaluate. I'm always self-evaluating. I'm self-analyzing. I do audits, right? And a lot of people don't do that. It's just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next without reviewing what worked, what didn't work, what transpired, what your part was, who you were, what you participated in, like, like what you gave, what you should have gave, what you shouldn't have gave, what you gave too much.
Right.
Like, I'm that person who, and it's not about being critical. I'm not critical of myself at all. I don't know what negative self-talk is because I don't have it, right? But I'm always going, okay. And because when I make decisions with clarity. When I go back and look at it, I can say, okay, you made that decision. How did it actually work? Versus, oh, you just let it flow. Oh, you just let it happen. And then it's like, oh, it just happened to me. No, I chose. I've always chose in my whole life. I've always chosen. So again, just being able to recognize patterns, it requires a person to be willing to self audit honestly. And when you audit yourself honestly, then you can start to recognize, oh, every 3 years this happens.
Right.
In September this happens. Oh, about January I'm broke. Like you start to notice, and it's not just about relationships, it's literally about our life, our
Mhm.
life cycles. I can tell you right now that every time I transition or move, July is my transition month.
Mhm.
I always move in July. I've lived in California, Maryland, Florida, Texas. I always move in July, right? So July is a transition month. Around about October, September, the finances look crazy. And then, right? So it's,
Mhm.
if we evaluate and pay attention to ourselves, not the people around us,
Right.
but what we do, how we operate, what happens in our lives, then we'll be able to say, okay, that's my cycle.
That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that. I think I started once I started understanding the cycles within myself. I called them patterns before instead of cycles. That's where the calibration was birthed, because I'm like, how do I recalibrate? How do I go back and reflect and come out, rejuvenated with a new plan. um like you said, see what worked, what didn't work, how did that season make me feel, what do I want to take out of it. So that's important. And then when we take those cycles and then we look at those cycles within our relationships, you touched on finances, because we know finances are one of the biggest things that break couples up. you know Understanding the, like, Marcus and I are going through a recalibration right now. It's like, what season are we in? What cycles are we ready to break within our marriage? You know, um, Talk about any cycles that you think a wife should look out for. Like, don't just think, oh, this just happens, because these are real cycles that we go through within our relationships.
Um, I think one of the worst cycles, aside from miscommunication, is comfort,
Mm,
right? Where you get into a cycle of go to work, go to school, come home, have dinner, kiss, have sex on Wednesday, take the kids to the movie on Saturday, wash, rinse, repeat, without recognizing that you're in a pattern, and how easily that pattern can lead to a disconnect, right? So my husband and I have been together 14 years. We've been through some cycles. Like, there was one point in time I felt like I was sleeping with my brother. And it wasn't because anybody was doing anything wrong. It was the cycle. It was a cycle. And because I personally would advise any woman, never take anything for granted. It's not about being paranoid. It's not about being scared. It's about being proactive and paying attention. My husband is one of the most loyal, loving, kind people you will ever meet. I don't ever take for granted that somebody else can't catch his eye. I don't ever take for granted that he can't get bored or tired or feel misused, or he can't feel taken for
mhm,
granted. So I'm
mhm,
always checking in. Baby, where are you at right now? Where are we at right now? And when I notice a level of comfort that I'm not comfortable with, then I'm going to address it. So it's like, you know what? We've been acting like brother and sister, and I don't like the way this feels. Let's
mhm,
talk about it. What do we need to do? And anytime I've ever come to my husband and talk to him, because he's also a great communicator, we're able to address it and say, yeah, this has been this. Like, we've just been tired, or we've just been working, but what do
mhm,
we need to do to pay attention or move the needle,
mm,
so that it doesn't often require extreme things. Sometimes
mhm.
it just requires acknowledgement and being able to say, I see you, even though we ain't seeing each other, but I see you and I'm paying attention. Always know I'm peeking, right? No, oh, well, you weren't paying attention to me, and this person was paying attention to me at work. No, ain't none of that in my life. We ain't none of that. I
Like
saw
those
you.
fresh haircuts, knew
Yeah.
this, knew that. It's like those are definitely important. And you bring up such a good point. It's like that is one of, outside of, I think, finances, I think that's one of the scariest
Mhm.
cycles that we can go through,
Mhm.
because if we're not aligned coming out of that cycle, and one of us has already acknowledged it and the other one is still there, all it takes is that one person to say, oh, I like your haircut. Oh, that's a new shirt you got on. Oh, is that a new cologne?
Mhm.
Those little things. If he's already out of that cycle, and like, man,
Mhm.
she not noticing anything, you know.
And I'm right in here in this vein. I'm feeling like I need to say more,
Go ahead.
because I've heard so many women make statements. Oh, he ain't going nowhere, or what? I got him now, or he knows what he got, and then they feel like it's okay to not dress up a little bit, or not
Woo.
take care of yourself, or not. And I and this ain't meant to offend anybody, but the truth is the truth. Put on the shoe or don't. It's up to you. There's a lot of women, especially us as Black women, who are working through our own unhealed things. And so we end up paying pain Olympics with our men. And we feel like we can't give to them because we're not receiving. And oftentimes, the women I see don't know how to ask for what they're missing. And
Mm,
then instead of saying, "Hey, baby, we both need to do some work," or what do you need from me? I'm willing to give it to you. They start just being, well, that's all right. He's not giving it to me, so I'm not giving it
right.
to him. It becomes a tit for tat. And that just never works. And I've just seen so many women who are, and it's not because they haven't been hurt. They've been hurt, they've been misused, but because they're not checking their cycles and their patterns and doing a
Yes.
self audit, they find themselves in the same bad situations, or they don't know how to trust themselves in new situations. And so they end up tearing it up because they're just
Mm.
through with the same thing. And then they're causing damage to good men who want to love them, who want to take
Oh,
care of them,
yes.
want to take care of the kids, who want to come, be the provider, and who want to do all these things. But because of their inability to say, "Hey, I'm wounded, but I'm going to give you a love, or I'm going to listen to you and be willing to hear you," like, it's just all off. It's all messed up.
Oh, girl, I hope y'all are sharing this because that was a whole word, and I hope that that definitely helps somebody because again, that's a very dangerous place to be because a lot of times as we're growing and maturing in our faith and oneness within ourselves, everybody's on this healing journey. It's like there's so many different layers that we constantly have to peel back, but we still have to show up for our spouse. We still have to show up for our husband. And we can't play this battle of the pain like, oh, well, I'm feeling this way. I can't do for you because I'm doing this. Like Marcus and I started, it's like checking in, like, hey, how much you got today? Like how much you got? Okay, I got a little bit more than you, so I'm gonna get out here and go tackle these kids while you go rest and and rejuvenate. And then or it's like, hey, I really can't. I have nothing today. And Marcus would be like, hey, I got you. He gonna order a pizza or something for the kids. And he's gonna be on daddy duty while I, you know, have a little bit of time to rejuvenate a little bit. But you have to check in for each other. We have to show up, especially for these men because they get beat up so much outside our homes. It's like they have to come home to peace. It's like I was talking to you know, um, a friend of ours the other day, and he was just like, I just want peace and respect. Because he was like, there's so much. He's like, biblically, we talk about the love and respect, and one of my wives talked about that in the book. But now in this day and age, I got to add on peace for the men because they're hurting. They're not coming home to a peaceful place. We're not his peace you know especially, and I don't want to touch on this too much, but it's like especially when it comes to these blended families.
Mm.
When it
Mm.
comes to this blended families, we're putting so many false expectations on these men to show up and to care for children that they didn't father. you know of course we love them and appreciate them for stepping in, right? But they don't have to. They love you, and they're taking on this extra because of you. And so I think that we should show up even more for them because they don't have to do a lot of the stuff that they're doing, especially when the child has a father and you're not holding him accountable as much as you're holding your husband accountable for children that he didn't create.
Oof, that's a whole different conversation. Um, I've always been very cognizant of that. Um, but I've seen so many women mess up a family dynamic because they
Mm,
want to choose their child,
yep.
which you got to take care of your child. But when you move into a relationship, you got to find that balance. You can't be choosing your child over this man that came in, and vice versa. Like, there are certain very clear lines. Like, I will never let a man abuse my child. Like, that's not going to happen. But
Absolutely.
if you expect him to be a provider and you expect him to buy shoes and school clothes, then you cannot turn around and disrespect the man and then allow the child to disrespect him with, but you ain't my daddy. All right, well, let your daddy buy your shoes.
Oh, ouch. I hope y'all sharing this because this is
Right.
the truth.
And
It's true.
I know with me and my husband, right? He's a peaceful man, right? So he's I told him from the start, we're a package deal. You got me, you got the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
My two oldest were older, so they weren't like, but I had a younger one, right? He was
Mm-hmm.
nine when my husband came in. And sometimes I would have to push and urge him, yo, step in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
step in.
Mm-hmm.
Then he told me, he's like, one, first of all, he's like, I'm very military. So he's like, if I had kids, my husband doesn't have any natural kids of his own. He's like, if I had kids, my kids would be in military school. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be a problem. I said, so I understand. Thank you for understanding that your mindset is military and you can't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that does not let you off the hook from being in there and still being the man figure. And then he told me, he said, you know, you have a family that talks a lot, advises a lot, and does a lot. He said, I don't feel like there's anything that I add to that. He said,
Mm.
I'm a backup. He said, because you are very advisory. You're very, you're very
Mm-hmm.
there. He said, and you have brothers who come in and your parents who come in. He said, so I'm there for backup and I'm there to provide. So it becomes an ongoing conversation where you have
Right.
to feel where your man is feeling. And around about the time my son was 14, I had to apologize to my son and my husband because I said, you know, I had been kind of standing in the gap
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
being a mediator,
Right.
softening the blows, because I didn't want my son to feel like I was choosing a man over him. Right?
Right.
And his father wasn't involved. So I was very,
Mm-hmm.
and then I said, you know what, baby? I did a disservice. I've been standing in the way. I've been trying to cushion blows and trying to keep you from being in certain spaces and ways because I didn't want you to feel like I was choosing somebody over you. I said, but you know what it's done? It's created a place where there's a man in this house that needs to communicate with you and I'm in the way. I said, so I take my hands off. So if I walk in the house and he got you upside the wall, I am going to turn around and walk out because I trust that he's not going to abuse you, but I also know y'all having a man moment. And I was like, so I move my hands. But again, that's a whole lot of conversation.
It's a whole nother the man moments, that's a whole nother thing
It's
because I
man
used to
moment.
cringe when Marcus would have get prepared to have a man moment with, my oldest son, and I'm just like, ooh, and I was the same way. I was a mediator between them instead of letting the natural flow between a man and his son, blood or not. It's like I did a disservice to my oldest. And and Marcus and I have talked about that. He was like, I should have done more.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that he would have done more if I hadn't been there. Like you said, trying to cushion the blows, laying a pillow on the floor so he wouldn't fall and actually scrape. I'm like, no, you should have fallen. I should let you fall. I should have let him talk to you a certain way as man to man, things like that. But I was in the middle of it. And I shouldn't have been. Oh, but yeah, that's a whole nother book. We might have the wife union blended because
Girl. Yeah, that's
that's a whole nother, because
conversation.
we have got to get better as women coming into seeking wifeship, seeking relationships, seeking marriage, coming with children, and you not having a united front with your husband. It's like it's so messy. It's so messy. But I'm super excited as we get ready to wrap up. I know we ran over a little bit, but it got juicy. It got good, y'all. So I hope you are sharing this. If you have not shared it, please do so because I guarantee you something that was said is going to help and bless somebody. But guys, next month in September, mid-September, September 17th, our book will be released. We'll have the pre-sale link up next week. So I'm super duper excited. And then we have our summit coming up in November that will be here in Houston, Texas. But before we get ready to go, tell the people where you at. What other services? I know you're a wife, you're a mom, all that good stuff. But girl, you are a superstar. So tell the people where you at, where they can find, Dear Leader and all that good stuff. Everything you got going on. You got big trips coming up. You out here doing your thing.
Yes. Okay. So, as Flower says, I am a who child. Which one am I? Am I first? Look, girl, you know me and title. So I am a leadership strategist and an identity transformation coach. So I have a nonprofit foundation called Global Legacy Builders, where I go into underserved communities around the world, Africa, India, US, and I help identify and build leaders, women and youth in the communities to build them up. On the other end of the spectrum, I work with high functioning leaders in my personal practice. I teach a master class based on my book, my best-selling book, Dear Leader, a personal guide for leaders through peace, pandemic, and protest, which you can find on Amazon. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me, Tiffany Rochelle. Right now, I'm revamping all of my sites. But as like I said, on the other end of the spectrum, I work with high functioning leaders that have done all the classes, know all the things, but have reached crossroads, maybe burnt out, or maybe they are looking to face specific challenges that a lot of people won't understand. So I work with apostles, prophets. I work with CEOs, entrepreneurs. I work with business owners, business leaders. I work with people internationally and people locally. But one thing that I'm very, very good at is helping leaders, one, return to their humanity, to understand and be nurtured in the spaces where they are either hurting, lacking, missing, looking for support. I help them get really clear about who they are, who they serve, who they lead, and the legacies that they're leaving behind. So if you are a leader and you're facing a challenge, I will help you face that challenge in the dark so you can keep shining in the light. But again, the best way to find me, LinkedIn, Tiffany Rochelle, Amazon, Dear Leader, the red cover book, because there's another Dear Leader, that one ain't mine. But the red cover book. I'm also on social media, sometimes sporadically, periodically. I'm getting ready to head to Kenya the end of September. And I'll be in South Africa and in, I think, Uganda and Namibia for the last months of the year. But I work all over. So hit me up.
Yes, hit her up. I think we got some masterclass attendees, graduates up in here.
Wait a minute. Yes, I speak too, y'all. So if y'all need a speaker, listen, I come to speak at your corporate offices for your social responsibility, for wellness workplace, because I help women to advocate for themselves, building their confidence, building their visibility, understanding how to command any space that they're in. So
she is your girl. She is the behind the scene queen.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, love. I appreciate you as always.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait for the book to come out and for us to, I don't know where I'll be in November. If I'm in November, here in November, I'll be in Houston. But
of
course,
but you're gonna be here for the virtual release.
Yes.
So we're excited. So you guys, we love you. Grace and peace to everybody. Have a